to Beating a Dead Horse. As always, I am your host, Sean McKinda.
And I'm your host, Jackson Keller.
And this week, before we start to talk about what we're watching, I need to defend why we're watching it.
It's a weird one, folks.
So I've been talking about The Good Liar. I mentioned it last week, but we're diving into it this week. And Jackson went into it knowing almost nothing about it. I had seen the trailer, which is why I decided to watch this movie. Because if you watch the movie can best be described as a grandpa movie. And I don't mean that in necessarily a bad way. It just feels like the type of movie that you would go in, like you're going over to visit your grandparents on like a Sunday afternoon. It's like 2:30, and your grandfather is, sitting in his lazy boy watching TV, and like The Good Liar doesn't feel out of place on like AMC or Turner Movie Classics or like something like that, like a Hallmark movie in a way, honestly. Just in like how it's lit, how it's shot. The actual content is kind of campy and silly. In other words, it's something that doesn't feel like something we would ever talk about. But I highly recommend that you go watch the trailer for it, and suddenly it seems like something we would talk about. Because the trailer is very much like action, like, Helen Mirren and Ian McKellen, battle of wits. It's a big deal between the two of them as they both struggle for supremacy to be the true good liar. It's dark, it's gritty, it's got murder, and yeah, this does too, but it's the exception rather than the rule.
This is a weird one. In many, many, many ways. In that even from the outset, like from the opening credit sequence, first of all, I guess like to clarify exactly what I knew going in, I had not seen the trailer. All I remember is that my mom had mentioned wanting to see a movie with Helen Mirren and Ian McKellen, and I'm like, oh yeah, I think Sean mentioned that was a movie. And then you said, let's go do this for next week, and I'm like, aight. And so I go.
What a poor decision.
Errors were made. And so I go, and I'm kind of like slouching in my seat. I'm like, all right, whatever. And the title sequence catches my eye because of the director, who is of course Sir Bill Condon, famed, acclaimed director of the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Parts 1 and 2, of which I've only seen Part 2. And if you have not seen Breaking Dawn Part 2, watch it. Don't worry, you don't need to watch any other ones, because I didn't, and I had a blast.
Sam and I have, when we still had cable, would unironically stop and watch that movie every time it was on. It is nonsense. Highly recommend. just to echo the sentiment. I'm not kidding. Watch Breaking Dawn Part 2.
And if you have seen that movie, however, we won't spoil it. We should honestly do like a bonus episode of that or something at some point. But if you have seen Breaking Dawn Part 2, this should be a big red flag. Because structurally, and in terms of tone, and in terms of going
third act twists,
in terms of completely going off the rails in like the last 15 minutes, this is very similar. But whereas Breaking Dawn Part 2 goes off the rails in the most glorious way, this goes off the rails in a way that made me literally squirm in my seat.
Yeah, we're gonna we always joke about how, form follows function with this, and we're gonna give away the ghost here a little bit and how we're gonna do this. We're not gonna tell you what the twist is until the very end of the podcast to really kind of drive home what it was like for us to sit in a movie theater for an hour and a half and watch this. It's mildly entertaining movie. It wasn't bad.
I was having a reasonably good time with it. It wasn't great, and I have some qualms that aren't the big one that kept me from really enjoying it as like a pulpy grandpa movie. But as a pulpy grandpa movie, I'm like, okay, I can get into this maybe.
Yeah. But we need to stress this right now. That third act twist, vile, reprehensible, fucking awful, and completely undoes any recommendation either one of us would have had. Because, like, I would have been like, hey, you know what? If it's on TV, go ahead and watch it. Now, don't watch it. Don't do anything with this fucking movie. It's awful. I legitimately walked out of the theater and spent 2 hours with my mouth open, quietly whispering to myself, what the fuck? What the fuck? What? And that is not a joke. I was wandering through Target, just occasionally going, wait, what the fuck? As little more bits of it kind of solidified in my memory. It is not good in any way.
Yeah, I worry that we make this sound more like salacious and spicy than, that might make people curious. This is one where, we're gonna leave it till the end. If you think we're making it sound like some mind blower, like what the fuck worth watching movie.
Like Serenity. This is not a Serenity.
This is not a Serenity. This is the key difference. Breaking Dawn Part 2, although there are many marked similarities between this and that, Breaking Dawn Part 2 goes off the rails in a way that makes the movie worth watching. This one goes off the rails in a way that very much makes the movie not worth watching. That ruins the movie. Literally ruins the movie. It's been a while since I have seen a movie that I can just point to like one part and say that it ruins everything. And here we are.
It's never happened on the podcast where both of us have agreed that ruined the movie. So
yeah.
Please take our word for it. Do not seek this one out. You'll more than likely be kind of bored in the beginning. There'll be little moments you're like, oh, okay, that was interesting, and then you will hate yourself for wasting an hour and 50 minutes on it in the last 20 minutes of the movie. It's not fun. It's not worth it.
No. A hearty no from me as well. This was, oh my god. I still haven't seen Jojo Rabbit or Parasite. I wish I had watched those instead.
Oh, no, I'm so sorry.
You couldn't have known. You couldn't have known. Oh god.
Fuck, we should have watched Parasite instead.
Well,
I would have seen that movie a third time.
Well, nothing ain't nothing to it but to do it. Let's get this over with. Let's get into the I was about to say let's get into the muck, but we're gonna save that for now. But because there are some other spoilers, I guess we'll call this spoilers because there are some other.
Well, no. Before we get into spoilers, I want to talk a little bit about our viewing experience.
Oh, sure.
Because like, for context as well, like this movie. When I saw this movie, I was thinking like, hey, what are we going to talk about with it? And my thought was, I'm seeing this movie at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday. The past few movies I've seen at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday has been like me and a couple other people in a theater. It's, not busy. It's about what you'd expect at 1 p.m. on a Tuesday.
That's about what my theater experience was like. And to be clear, Sean literally texted me, I am reeling like right as I was driving to go see it. So we literally like tag team like swapped in on this one. So
but what was weird about this viewing experience for me is I go and like the theater I went to see, like, let you choose your seat. And I go and I hit the machine and I'm like, wait a second. There's like 10 seats left. What the fuck is going on? What is happening? Even pulling into the theater, I'm like, wow, it's really busy right now. That's weird. I guarantee no one's here for fucking The Good Liar, a movie that barely got any, ad time anywhere. I figured everyone was here for like Ford v Ferrari, a movie that's supposed to actually be good. And then I get into, I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is it. And then I sit down, and as the movie's starting, I'm like, you know what? I wonder. And I like turn around and I look at everyone behind me and quickly realize that I am the youngest person there by, at minimum, 10 years.
It was much the same in my theater too for the few people that were there, although that's not super uncommon from where I'm at. So I didn't make much of a note of it at the time.
See, I did, because like I saw what did I see last week around this time? I saw Terminator Dark Fate around this time last week, and it was me and one other person in a full theater, in like a full 200-person theater. So like when it was full, I'm like, ooh, this is weird. And when I saw Dark Fate, the other guy was 30s maybe at the like 20s, 30s, somewhere in that range. So like
what you'd expect.
Yeah, exactly. So this was a very different new experience for me. And like I thought this was going to be like the big thing we could talk about is like just how the viewing experience is very different based on what movie you're watching. And like, you know, we go and see The Lighthouse and the theater is silent as everyone's like taking in this avant-garde nightmare art piece thing. And then, you know, you go see the new Marvel movie and, you know, people are having a good time laughing, but, you know, it's still pretty respectful and everything. And then you go see an old person movie and wow, I was not expecting this to be the crowd that was not respectful at all.
It very often is, shockingly. Actually, what I found is that like movie theater shitlords have no age except for kids. Fuck kids.
I mean, we've established this in our Incredibles 2 episode.
Like, granted, I haven't seen a boomer go to war with his popcorn quite yet, but they get pretty close.
Yeah, no, it's like it's one of those things where like I have had largely really good theater experiences, but except like when I go see a kids movie, and like at that point I'm not gonna be the guy who's like, oh man, I can't believe there were kids in The Incredibles 2, ruining my whole experience. I can't. Why? Like, I know what I'm going to go see.
Right.
What I didn't expect with this one was to hear people constantly wildly speculating very loudly in their seats the entire time the movie went on. And there's not really a lot to speculate. If you've seen the trailer, you pretty much know the movie. And, like, not to give away the end twist, like, the big thing that we're pushing away, there's a smaller twist that if you watch the trailer, you can pretty much guess it. So I don't know what people were speculating about.
Yeah. That was, I just wanted to reiterate that was the most shocking thing, like having seen the movie, and then in a pre-discussion, Sean told me to go watch the trailer. I was shocked at like how much of the movie I basically felt like I had just gotten to watch in like a 2-minute clip, minus the big thing. Yeah, no, the trailer is surprisingly comprehensive once you've seen the movie. Like, wow. But the big thing I was kind of getting away from with our boomer crowd at the theater was early on, just to kind of set my stage and like what I was expecting this movie to be. We see Helen Mirren and Ian McKellen both set up on a dating website. Which just that elicited a couple chuckles from the crowd, and I'm like, that's nothing. It's a dating website. What are you laughing at? But then there's a clear moment of character development. It's not a joke. It's character development. It's not shot. It's not framed like a joke. Where Helen Mirren takes a drink of alcohol and then marks she doesn't drink, and then Ian McKellen smokes and then marks that he doesn't smoke, and like, that's not funny. That's just content. Like, that is just part of the movie. It's you know, foreshadowing, character development, etc., yada yada yada. Like, it says everything in those scenes, but it's not funny, and yet half of the theater erupted in laughter, and I'm like, what the fuck am I missing? Where am I?
Although to go even further beyond, to take a Jackson line here.
Yes. My memes are seeping into your brain, McQueen.
If I certain, you know how certain theaters, like, you'll have like there's the ads, and then there's like the ads from like the guys who run the theaters, like, hey, thanks for coming to our theater.
Oh, did your boomers complain about all the ads very loudly too?
Nope, worse. They
no.
laughed at them.
Oh no.
There was a really dumb joke about like, oh, I'm gonna take a selfie with the founder of the movie theater, make it look like we're friends, and everyone's like, oh, millennials and their cell phones, am I right? Making it look like they're friends. That's not how that works. And I'm just like, what the fuck are you on about?
You people are responsible for the heat death of our planet. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I mean,
wow. Oof, I'm reeling even more than the shitty fucking ending in this movie.
But like, that's really what I just wanted to talk about a little bit. It was just like how kind of like a wildly different experience it was seeing this movie with like the crowd that it is undeniably aimed at. Granted, having seen the movie, this movie is not aimed at anyone, and in fact should probably just be cast into the fires of hell.
Sealed in the darkness beyond time.
Throw it in the Disney vault, it's fine. So like it can go sit next to Song of the South.
Wait, hold on. Speaking of Disney, am I wrong? Is New Line Cinema owned by Disney?
No, this is WB, so it can't be.
Okay, this is WB. Oh, no, you're right. Okay, yeah.
WB is one of like the three chains that aren't owned by Disney right now. So
Right. Okay, because I was like, maybe like I would be pretty fucking shocked if Disney let this be released under any of its like subsidiaries, but whatever, go on.
Yeah, no, it would have been wild. But yeah, I mean that's really what it was. It's just like talking about like the different experience and just like listening to people laugh at things that like I don't know whether it's just like a generational difference. It has to be like that is really what it has to be. Because like
yeah.
There were just things that weren't funny, like that weren't even intended to be funny. And they're like, oh, things are changing. Yes, that is time.
Like I guess like that's interesting because I don't even make a note of this anymore because I have lived in shithole countries known as the rural United States for the past God 3 years. Yeah, like, and so every screening, like, unless it's a Marvel thing, every screening is gonna have some boomers, and like, and especially now, where like I'll go see movies with my family at like primo boomer times, and like I don't even notice it anymore. I'm old.
Yeah, I usually like. If you know I'm in Columbus, you know about the Gateway Film Center, and that's usually where I go see my movies, and that's a bunch of college kids and artsy-fartsy assholes like me who are going to go see Korean movies with subtitles and The Lighthouse and other things like that.
I would kill for a theater to see Korean movies with subtitles that wasn't an hour away.
It is nice. Columbus is kind of a film town in a weird way. We got a couple of like locally owned theaters, couple of art house theaters. It's not a bad deal.
I guess an hour away is an upgrade from where I was previously, where the nearest theater was 6 hours away.
Oh, Christ, I would die. All right. Do we want to start talking spoilers?
Let's start talking spoilers because I think that particular scene you pointed to of the boomers guffawing at the online dating website thing, that's a good jumping off point because that scene almost preemptively ruined the movie for me.
Well, before we do, next week we're gonna be talking about Detroit Become Human.
For some goddamn reason.
This was suggested to us by a friend of the podcast, Desi, actually, or I'm gonna just credit that boy directly, because at one point he's like, "Hey, Jackson really fucking hates Chappie, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "You guys ever play Detroit Become Human?" And I go, "Oh no, there you go, though."
I didn't realize that's why he recommended it. That's hilarious.
Yeah. So we're gonna be doing that. That's gonna be another one. That's gonna be another live episode. As a heads up, our live episodes might be going fewer and further between just as we've gotten busier. So if you want to catch a live episode next Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, twitch.tv/helpus_Skippy. They're not going to disappear, but they're just not going to be as monthly as they used to be. So
at minimum, we're going to take a bit of a break for the holidays in December. So
yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep you in the loop on what we plan to do with those. But yeah, they're not disappearing for good by any means.
So, but if you want to like get in contact with us in the most direct way, there's your opportunity to. Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, twitch.tv/helpus_Skippy. Jackson, talk about the Boomer movie.
So talking about the Boomer movie, and so like I said, I was kind of into it for a while, but like slowly I sort of realized that the movie had shown its hand far too early to remain reasonably interesting, and now little did I know that it had one trump card to play still. But overall, I was mostly right. So my problem with this opening scene is I actually like this opening quite a bit. It really got me in the mood for like you said, the trailer portrays, kind of this like battle of wits, like old people Death Note, basically.
I kind of got like some like Ocean 11's vibe from it. Like,
yeah, like we're gonna watch these two clever, charismatic characters like kind of like try to outplay each other in one way or another.
And instead we watch old people living together.
We really, really do. And like even without having seen the trailer, you kind of get it, because like there's a lot of like mirrored shots, of the, Sean mentioned the smoking and the drinking, that is a big establishing moment of like them, lying on their profiles and, showing that neither one is really trustworthy in this scenario. And there's just a lot of little things like that. So the movie sets them up as both like kind of clever and both potentially like, the good liar. Because of course it's the only other thing I knew about the movie was the title, and even then I had to check my phone when I was asking for the ticket. I almost said the Ian McKellen Helen Mirren movie. So that's a good setup. That's fine. But the problem is that pretty soon it becomes clear that Ian McKellen is our primary POV character. And once I started to realize
basically our only.
Yeah. We get him, like, pretty much everything from his perspective. And that, once I realized that we weren't getting the scenes, like, I thought that, like, it would show, like, Ian McKellen, like, pulling a con and, doing something tricky with those, like, investor guys.
Like Hobbs and Shaw. Hobbs and Shaw is a great comparison.
Hobbs and Shaw is a great comparison, because that movie actually did that really well, and that was like that was the movie. That's what they sold the movie on, and it overall worked. And so yeah, old people Hobbs and Shaw, I'm here for it, but that's not what we got.
I'm really here for it, honestly. That's why I wanted to see this, because I thought that's what this was going to be. That sounds fucking awesome.
No, exactly. And so then once you realize that, like, everyone's talking about Helen Mirren's character, like, oh, she's like a doddering, helpless old woman, like a naive mark that, the swindler, like, crime lord Ian McKellen's gonna go after. In my head, I'm like, well, wait a minute, but we've already established in the opening scenes that Helen Mirren is no fool and much cleverer that we give her credit for, if not explicitly, then like implicitly through the framing and the shot composition. So like I don't buy for a second that this is going to be like just Ian McKellen like trying to pull this con on this old lady. Like obviously there's going to be some twist involving her, and sure enough there is. Weirdly enough, there's also some Nazis.
Oh man, Bill Condon entirely wants to be Quentin Tarantino.
Yes, absolutely. There's because there's even like a minute of Inglourious Bastards here, which is maybe the most unbelievable thing in the movie, is that these two ancient gamers would go see Inglourious Bastards on their first date.
The wildest part about this too, it was like I have not seen Inglourious Bastards, but I saw the thing, like the Parisian theater like set on fire with machine gun going. I'm like, that looks like Inglourious Bastards from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's a weird thing to have here. And then they walk out and they're like, boy, what a great film, Inglourious Bastards.
Literal birdemic tear. No, it's hilarious. I actually thought, like, it took me a minute. I'm like, wait, is this Leo's scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with the flamethrower? Oh wait, no, this is actually Inglourious Bastards. Oh, okay. So this movie's gonna have Nazis in it, or it's gonna involve Nazis because they're like 80.
And like when they walk out too, they're like, the young people these days, they're gonna think that's what really happened. And I'm like, oh God, is this what we're already setting up for or whatever? And then Helen Mirren's like, no, I don't think that's the case. You don't have the faith in the young people. We were stupid back then and they're not. I'm like, wow, that wasn't what I was expecting for this crowd. So like, I have to give the movie a little bit of props for that one, in that like they didn't just immediately take the low-hanging fruit of our audience is going to be old, let's just make fun of millennials.
I kind of liked that character interaction afterwards. Yeah, it's a bit of whiplash because you're thinking like, all right, so this movie's, it's like back and forth going to be about like some secret Nazi shit, which it kind of is. But then like also when they're having the little interactions, for a minute I'm like, is this just going to be about like old people online dating? Because if so, I think I'm on board for that too. A little weird that they played it as such like a pulpy thriller, but then they go back to pulpy thriller mode and Ian McKellen crushes a man's hand with a meat tenderizer.
And like that's where it gets really Quentin Tarantino, is that like early on, and even like interspersed throughout a little bit, there's just some moments of like bizarre, like hyper violence, hyper sexualization. Early on, they just go to a strip club. Not Helen Mirren, but Ian McKellen just goes to a strip club and there's just boobs. It's wild. Like it's not that out of place in the beginning of the movie where like they literally just walked out of Inglourious Basterds. So your mind's already kind of in like this is going to be weird and violent, and like Ian McKellen's still doing a lot of like con man shit. But then like retroactively, after you've watched another 45 minutes of just banal homebody stuff, you're like, did I dream that strip club scene?
I actually completely forgot about it until Sean mentioned it again.
Yeah.
This movie was just like flatline like Boomercore. But so I think like
Boomercore is a great genre.
So I think the weird thing is that like that's
oh, that's the title of the episode.
Oh, amazing. So the weird thing is that scene, like that, you could tell it's a very purposeful cut, in that like we're going from like, oh, Ian McKellen being a charmer, oh, they're going to see the movie and having their little character interactions, and aren't they like old and sweet, and then hard cut to Ian McKellen like walking in the strip club, he's gonna be doing some shady crime boss stuff. Like that makes sense as a move, but then the movie never really does that again, well, except for the weird little bits of violence which aren't that violent, at least in the beginning.
I was gonna say, like, not even talking about like the final twist, which, as an aside, we have been like hinting at this final twist here for a little bit now, and we need to clarify before we even get there. You're getting more than we ever got. So much more.
Yes. It came out of like I said, I like the fact that they hint at all this Nazi stuff, which makes it seem like, all right. I'm just gonna describe my thought process. All right, okay.
Please.
So, my thought process of watching the movie, opening scene, okay, here's gonna be like a battle of wits between Ian McKellen and Helen Mirren in some way. Movie goes on for a little bit. I black out when the titties happen and completely forget them until Sean mentions them later. But otherwise, little weird and confused. I think it's gonna actually be a movie about old people online dating for a bit. Ian McKellen does some crime lord stuff. It becomes increasingly apparent that Helen Mirren is not a POV character, and that this is just about Ian McKellen pulling a big con. There's also this weird this undercurrent of like Helen Mirren's grandson being like a Nazi like history researcher. And
that sentence changes very dramatically after that pause, because you go being like a Nazi pause history researcher.
To clarify, he researches Nazis. He is not in and of himself a Nazi. And all this stuff, all this other things basically lead me to think like, okay, so here's basically what I'd piece together. Like, obviously, like, there's all sorts of other little hints about like Ian McKellen like understanding German and all this stuff. So like Ian McKellen is going to be like have been like a secret Nazi in World War II, or like been involved, or like fled the Nazis. He's from Germany. There's going to be some conspiracy thing. Obviously, Helen Mirren knows more than she's letting on, because otherwise, what was the point of those establishing shots? I guess the filmmakers could be completely incompetent, but based on the whole premise,
it's Bill Condon. He absolutely can be.
It's true. But this, it was pulpy enough that I'm like, there's no way we're walking out of here without some sort of twist. So I predicted that we would get some sort of like involvement with like Nazism from Ian McKellen, which turns out to be like pretty much on the mark, more or less. He isn't himself a Nazi, but was a German who like changed identities after World War II, after a job goes wrong.
Also not the big twist. As a clarification, that feels like that could be a twist. Still not it.
It's a minor twist. It's like a second act like bump in the road. But yeah, not the big twist, to be clear. And so I figure like, okay, we have this backstory. Helen Mirren is going to know about this for some reason, and my thought, and you know, I didn't know exactly what the big twist involving her was going to be, but I knew that like he was going to, you know, try and do his big con on her, and she's going to get the upper hand on him, and she's going to have some involvement with all this Nazi stuff going on, which turned out to be completely correct. However, the way that manifested, I could have never predicted in a million years.
Yeah, no, not even a little bit. That's not a bad like synopsis of how like your mind rolls through it. But like I do want to kind of just dive back into those little bits of violence for a minute, because they are so stark and out of place in like such a otherwise. I mean, like, you know, you got like the mental games they're playing with each other, and like the Ian McKellen sometimes uses like coarse language. He's like, oh fuck, and stuff like that, and like those little moments of like fuck feel like they should really be like the punctuating moments, the ones where you're like, oh yeah, he's not who he says he is. You know, it really emphasizes that he's kind of a bad guy. Instead, they try and use these moments of like crazy violence that to underscore these, and they just are so out of nowhere. Like, as I said, this movie feels like something that you would see on cable. Like, it feels like a made-for-TV movie in a lot of ways, except for the titty bar, and then the subsequent like. At one point, the man gets his hand mashed with a meat tenderizer. Another point, Ian McKellen shoves a dude in front of a train, head first. The last one, where you actually see the bloody violence, is a man gets his face blown off, and then you look at the man's face blown off.
I actually had like a flashback to Overlord looking at that dude.
Yeah!
Like it was brutal. Like the meat tenderizer hand and like the him pushing him in front of the train, like those were jarring, but only because the rest of the movie is so tame, you know?
Yeah.
But like that was oof. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's fucking absurd. The violence in this movie is so wildly out of place, and like once again, it feels like Bill Condon is trying to be Tarantino, and like they've set that up from the beginning because it's just moments of hyper-violence and hypersexualization, but it doesn't work in this like quote-unquote mental thriller.
Yeah, and the other thing too about the violence is that I think it's, in hindsight, I think it's weird for his character, and that like I thought like especially that scene where like he tenderizes that dude's hand, and like, you know, he's got his Russian compatriots. Like I thought that kind of what we were building up to is that he was going to be like a crime boss, or like, you know, involved in like some sort of crime family.
More profiteering, maybe.
Yeah, like, but that's not really what happens. He's just kind of a regular old con man for the most part, who's exceptionally vicious sometimes.
Well, let's talk about our first flashback of the movie, where we're in Berlin, and Helen Mirren's son, Steve, I believe is his name, outs him as not being who he says he is, because then we learn that like he and another gentleman were hunting Nazis, specifically a man named Geiger. I remember that because I'm like the Geiger counter? That's weird.
I actually, this is unrelated to anything. I have just finished playing Earthbound, so I kept hearing his name as Gygus. Anyway, continue.
Right. So like they're going after Geiger, and he recants the story, and then we get it in a flashback, and then the son's like, well, that's not quite what happened, is it? Challenging him, and then we get like another version of the story where we get the version that Steve is like, okay, yeah, that's what happened. Like, basically what we're setting up here is like, it felt like what should have happened is this should have been told way earlier in the movie, and like throughout the movie we get like corrected versions of it. Like, as we learn a little bit more information, we cut back to that flashback. Like, we get the long flashback first, but like the fight in the kitchen, it cuts back to that fight and we see a little bit different about it. Like, that would have been a really clever idea for a movie, honestly.
Oh, and they had the perfect opportunity to do it because they have that scene where they first bring up his scar, which is what makes it obvious. And while he's telling the story that he's not the character that he says he is the first time he tells the story, like that dinner conversation, they could have like had that be the first version of the events. So there's like a real setup and payoff later instead of just nothing.
Yeah, that would have been great. And like I figured like the ultimate payoff would have been like, oh, he was actually Geiger or something like that. Just given the setup for everything else going on here. I mean, that would have made sense. It would have been incredibly dark. It would have been, kind of wild that like our main character was a Nazi. But it would have made sense within the context of the movie, and that's important when you're making a movie and telling a story.
Yeah, because what I was thinking, especially after the truth is revealed, and what ends up being revealed is that he was a German soldier living in post-war Berlin. After this job hunting Geigus goes wrong, the English soldier dies. He takes the opportunity to like take his identity and like leave Berlin, which at least is believable enough for like his con man sort of character. Like you can see how that would progress to him, doing things that he's doing now, having like a history of violence and stuff. So what I was thinking, bringing it back to Helen Mirren's character, obviously she knows more than she says. I thought the whole movie, like the grandson, the aggressiveness that he was displaying wasn't always well placed. So I thought like, okay, like, she has him like doing something for her, and like that's why he's so like Oedipus complex about all this. And I thought where this was going was that like even though like we get our reveal in 3 stages, basically 2 because of how, like you said, they don't properly set it up and just sort of retell the same story in the same scene. But in theory,
like 10 seconds apart from each other.
Yeah, but in theory, this is how this would go. Establish, war story of him being English soldier, hunting Nazis. Get the true version where he's a German soldier who escapes and steals an English soldier's identity, and the full implications that are still being left out, which I would, involving Helen Mirren somehow, which I would assume would be like Helen Mirren's family, she knew Ian McKellen's character and like he sold her out, and like she was like in hiding and like he gave her up to like the SS or something, which would be again incredibly dark, but it would be a logical step, and I mean I would say not inappropriate for like the plot, although the fact that the movie is so Boomercore otherwise means it would still be pretty inappropriate, but at least for this element of the plot it would be a logical place to go. It's an end game. It's a motivation for Helen Mirren. It's a nice little twist. Shows us that Ian McKellen is like even worse than we thought, even if he's not like a full-blown Nazi, which still maybe gives you a little room to try and empathize with him, because they do try and do that despite his more violent moments where it like calls what he's doing into question. So okay, great. That's not what happens.
No. And like, so we're going to, before we reveal that, I want to talk a little bit about Ian McKellen as a character. Because yeah, he has some more violent moments. Yeah, he has some not great tendencies. He's a liar. He's kind of a shithead. But like, he always has been kind of like a lovable rogue, kind of like a Han Solo type, if that makes sense. Like not somebody you actively hate, but like, not somebody you're necessarily rooting for, at least in the beginning. He's a scamp. He's a scoundrel. He's just kind of out there for himself doing his own thing.
Yeah, and it's hard. Like the movie even gets you on his side a little bit when he like dupes those guys, like the investor guys, with their little Russian mob scam. Like that's the kind of scam that, like, you know, they're not especially sympathetic victims. They're presented as kind of like bumbling fools with, you know, too much money to blow. So like, who cares if he's conning them, right? Like the fact that he's going after like old women is pretty predatory. But there's that murkiness like exists for you to at least enjoy his character.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like I'm struggling with words, and you'll understand why in a minute.
The thing that I was going to propose is that we normally do our like pre-spoiler discussion and then have our spoiler warning. I propose a third warning for this twist.
Honestly, not a bad idea.
Because now, when it comes to entertainment, long-time listeners may have picked up on the fact that it is generally pretty difficult to make me like genuinely uncomfortable or offended in a really like primal way. Like I'm pretty blasé when it comes to movies. Like, I'm pretty desensitized.
Seen some movies, we've played some games.
Yeah. This movie made me genuinely highly uncomfortable, if that says anything. So this is your content warning.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to give away the ghost here on this content warning just because I think it's important to. Your content warning is for the sexual assault of a child. Yeah, that's your twist. Helen Mirren was, as a 12-year-old, sexually assaulted by Ian McKellen's character. This is ignoring the absolutely reprehensible, irresponsible actions of this twist. It doesn't work even on a story level. This is in no way set up in the movie.
No, this is something you would expect to see in, like, this is an appropriate twist for something like Gone Girl, maybe. But like here with this fucking like Boomercore bullshit, absolutely not. Like, holy shit. And it's not just like the way it's presented to is it's not just a matter of like Helen Mirren, Ian McKellen's backstories. Like, we get to see events go down in excruciating detail.
It's a long scene.
And not only that, but like the way, like when the twist is being revealed and I'm sitting, and like this again, like it feeds into the. I wonder if they almost think that they're being clever, like because like with that expectation, like you think
I'm gonna talk about that cleverness here in 1 second because that makes me so fucking mad.
Yeah, so it almost seems like they're being clever, like, oh, you know, Nazis were just a red herring. So like,
thanks, Tim fucking Curry over here.
So, like we have this setup, and like Helen Mirren's given her little backstory, like, I was a youth learning English from you, Ian McKellen, and she says, like, I wonder if things would have gone differently if you hadn't like seen my sisters that day. And so, right with this shot, we also see like her important rich German like businessman dad, like, you know, making some like backdoors deals like against the government and like, you know, some political conspiring,
clearly
so, like,
working against the Nazis.
Yeah. So you think that, you know, this would be setting up like like, you know, Ian McKellen's character sells the family out to the Nazis, which I suppose he also does.
He does.
Anyway, yeah, like thinking about it just is such a footnote in comparison because we don't get an excruciating 10-minute scene of a 15-year-old Ian McKellen's character randomly groping her sister and trying to force himself on her with a kiss, already ew, and then
out of the blue.
Yeah, like this has not been a part of his character at all. We haven't seen any of like child Ian McKellen. Yeah.
It also just doesn't fit his character as a person. Like, as I said, he has been like a devilish rogue, someone that like is, you know, outside the law, but not without his charm and merit. And now, like, apparently as a 15-year-old, he was an irreconcilable shitbag. Which, yeah, okay, 15-year-olds, not great people. This is not how a 15-year-old acts. At least not the 15-year-old that becomes Ian McKellen.
No. I mean, the 15-year-old, like, there certainly are 15-year-olds like that, unfortunately, but those people tend to, like, end up in jail or, like, abuse, or just become, like, abusers, you know, in very, like, menial situations. They're not, like, high-class criminals. Like, you know, you need a certain amount of, like, know-how and intelligence. Like, when I think, like, the young version of Ian McKellen's character, I'm thinking, like, young Nathan Drake from Uncharted 3.
Yeah.
But that's not what we get. That's not what we get at all.
Like, just a rogue outside the law. That's what you expect. And oh god, this fucking scene makes me mad on about every level it possibly can. It is impressive in how much it fucks up.
And I think what's even more galling is how proud of itself it is. Because, like, during Helen Mirren's monologue after, despite, like, the mixed messaging, like, oh, things would have just gone differently if you hadn't, like, you know, groped my sister that day. Like all this was, like a cosmic tragedy, like, outside of his control. But, like, even though she's saying that, she's also, like the last shot of the movie is, like, her, like, looking at her granddaughters and smiling. Like, we've done it. We've solved, like, sexual assault and predatory behavior. And, like, there's just this overall, like, feeling of, like, triumph. Like, oh, like, I got, like it feels like I spit on your grave or something out of nowhere, you know? Like, that kind of movie. And it's so proud of itself for being, you know, finger quotes, empowering, even though it's anything but. Holy shit.
Yeah, the dialogue, too. Like, I don't feel equipped to really talk about this, but I will pay lip service to the fact that the dialogue is also somehow sympathetic towards Ian McKellen in these moments. Like, there's some, like, benefit of the doubt put on him, even as the act is taking place. As I said, it's irresponsible is really what it is. It's fucking absurd. But I want to talk about, like, the setup to this scene as well, and, like, why this scene fails on even a story-based level. Because this movie, you're definitely, like, it feels like it's setting up to the payoff, to, like, if you paid attention, you can solve, like, what is going on. We haven't seen Knives Out yet, but, like, I understand that that's kind of what that is as well. You know, you're watching the clues, and Clue, because we made a Clue reference a minute ago here. Like, there's a way to, like, follow along and get a little bit ahead. And, like, this is clearly indicated by the fact that Helen Mirren's character, who in the movie is, like, Betty or Barbara up to this point, is like, but you know who I was. The sign has been in front of you all along. And then she points to flowers. And he's like, oh, lilies? And then he goes, oh, no, Lily. And it's supposed to be this, like, revelation that, like, oh, a wave of recognition washes over the audience as we all understand who Lily is. And then, but you don't. Because the name Lily has never been mentioned before in this movie. There is, at no point prior to this moment, something that is recontextualized by this moment. There is no foreshadowing of this fucking event happening. There is no indication that he has ever known this woman before, ever, and there is no mention of Lily at any point. So, like, taking away the big reveal, like the event itself, which you shouldn't, because that needs to be criticized to hell and back. Helen back.
That's all, folks.
Taking away that, this doesn't work as a filmmaking moment. Like, I'm getting, like, AVP levels mad here because this is seriously such a failure of filmmaking on so many fucking levels. I am livid with it. it, oh God, it's so offensive. It's, oh, fuck me.
I mean, it's an unmitigated disaster, like on every fucking level. Like I'm still kind of in shock. Like I cannot believe that this is what this movie turned out to be.
Walking around Target, mouth agape, quietly muttering to myself, "What the fuck?" Because I didn't know what else to do. Oh my God, this movie is infuriating in that regard. Oh my God. And like, it's not even like a well-made movie in general. Like the rest of the movie too is like shot like overlit. It's a lot of boring static face shots and like it's uninteresting. The backing music sounds like it could be from The Room. So like it's not even like a redeemable movie and like, oh yeah, but the rest of it has some interesting filmmaking to it. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. The rest of the movie was fine at best. And with this conclusion, all I can say is go fuck yourself, The Good Liar.
I mean, here's the thing about this kind of movie is that as far as like, you know, as far as trying to make a recommendation, even if again you were gonna say like, oh, what if there's like some redeeming qualities beforehand? The thing about this kind of movie is that because it's so pulpy, it is that kind of thriller that it basically lives and dies by its twists. And when this is the payoff to everything, I mean, like, I am not...
It's a bad twist to begin with.
It's a bad twist to begin with. And, like, normally, I am a pretty, like, optimistic sort of person in a way. Like, I'll complain about movies to hell and back, but I'll give credit where it's due. But even the things that I liked about this movie, this is definitely one of those cases where, like, there's literally nothing to be gotten out of it because where it's going is just so fucking gross.
Oh, God. Like, part of me unironically feels bad that we were kind of joking our way up to this point. But, like, this movie is... We still need to present something in this movie, like have something to talk about. But like the ending genuinely makes me feel bad for those moments. Does that like? No. Yeah, it's fucking. It's awful. It's so.
I mean, honestly, like this is how I feel about it, and that like this is just me as a person, and that like I am like very jokey, especially when I'm uncomfortable with things. So. And I know that comes off as crass to a lot of people, and I suppose that's fair. But like, I would like to take the moment to really like state that this is just kind of where I'm at with like watching this movie. Like, I feel like I could do nothing but joke about it because it's such a fucking black hole of a movie. Holy shit.
I mean, once again, form follows function. The first 2/3 of the movie are easy to joke about, easy to talk about, easy to make simple criticism of, like shot construction bad, music bad, weird ultraviolence bad, and then like the final quarter, you get so mad at. There's no other answer but to be livid with where it goes.
Yeah, livid and it's shocking, and not
in a good way.
Not in a good way. I am, like I said, one of my favorite movies is The Wolf of Wall Street. One of my favorite movies is Kingsman. I am an edgy boy, and I found this genuinely offensive. So take that what you will.
It's just edgy for edgy's sake, though, is the thing. Like both of those movies are like making a point, and like there's context around the edginess and all that good shit. And in this one, there is no context around it.
It's funny because like I think this is even worse than just being edgy for edgy's sake. Like this, I would break this below something like Hatred, like that game.
Oh my God.
That's just edgy for edgy's sake. This is edgy that thinks it's smart and is actually like completely fucking brainless. Like it might be the bottom tier of edgy.
Like just not realizing that it's being edgy. Like it just like is.
Yeah. No, it thinks it's got something challenging or interesting to say, and it really, really doesn't.
And then like the final line's like, oh yeah, it gets deep in there or something like that, which is another one that's like, it's supposed to sound deep, definitely doesn't mean anything. Fuck this movie. Fuck
man.
this movie. Fucking blows.
So yeah, if you had your curiosity piqued by the beginning here, I hope you listened to the whole thing. I hope you got all the way here. Please don't watch it. It's not interesting. It's not like provocative in a artistic way.
It's not funny, shocking.
It's just trash. Just trash.
Oh God, I'm gonna be mad about this one for a couple weeks. I'm Sean McKinda. Find me on Twitter at Sean_McKinda. Find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/helpus_Skippy. I mean, honest to God, this transition feels crass in and of itself, but like, we have to end this somehow. This movie, like, fucking has broken me.
We really are going full AVP2 here. Holy shit. No, I don't blame you though. I mean, I mean, do you just want to play that clip of me going because that's may as well. There's nothing really else we can say except that I'm Jackson Keller and I'm here to advertise. Twitch.tv/Jackson J Keller.
Podcast, twitter.com/BADH_cast. Patreon, if you want to give us money, patreon.com/BADHcast. Bonus episodes at $5. Ask for bonus episodes at $10.
And you also get a shout out. Normally less dejected, but thanks Travis, thanks Julia, thanks Mom, and thanks Summer. Y'all are great.
It just doesn't feel right to be anything other than dejected now. Like, seriously, we ended this episode on the sexual assault of a child. That's... Fuck that. Fuck everything about that. Thanks to Loads of Highway for the use of our theme song. It was Suicide, alternate take off the album High Octane, Low Expectations. They're a great band. Go check them out wherever you get music, all that good stuff. Thanks to 25yearslatersite.com for endorsing us, letting us put our logo on your website, all that good stuff. Tons of great people doing tons of great writing. Go read everything that they've got. As of right now, they just launched a podcast and a YouTube channel. So you should go check those out as well. They're related to the Godzilla article that they posted about the early years of Godzilla. So go read that. It's great stuff. Next week, we're going to be talking about Detroit Become Human.
Oh, thank God, something we can unambiguously laugh at.
Oh, David Kage. Yeah. I'm sorry, and bye.
Don't you go into the ground. Don't you go